is the right sleeve, which is almost done. Just a little short on the inside piece. That's because I didn't extend the pattern for that part. I'm going to use the top part of the sleeve pattern because it has been extended, and I have drawn the undersleeve part onto it as well. I just didn't put an extension on the pre-existing underpart pattern. So I'm going to use this. I've lined up with the sleeve and the scrap and just draw the extra length on and cut it out. I've got my left underpart of the sleeve pieced together, as you can see, unfortunately. What I've done now then is just set that on the pattern piece, lined up with the lines for the underside, and the parts that are sticking out, you can see, is what will be the outer sleeve. And so I've lined up the fabrics so that they will match, at least on the sleeve. And I checked before I cut the underpart. I tried to figure approximately where it would fit on the bodice and tried to match. Well, we'll see. There's a little bit of extra, a little bit of wiggle room, so we'll try to line up as best I can. I did that more carefully, I think, for the right sleeve, but I want at least the sleeve patterning to match. So that's lined up. So I'm going to trace the outer sleeve. And well, there's a little distortion from the piecing, but as I put the two pieces together, I will try to make sure they line up as much as possible. You can see it's a pretty good match up at the top. I'm going to trace out the outer sleeve and cut it, and then put those two together. Then I will have two sleeves. I finished the right sleeve. Didn't have to do much piecing. The piecing I did have to do was unfortunate because I think I had enough material, but still the seam allowance would have been close. So I hadn't extended my under sleeve pattern from the pattern I was modifying it from, and so it ended up short. So I had to attach a piece to make that longer. Anyway, I've now modified the pattern so that I have it with the full length for next time. I've got my outer sleeve pattern for the left side traced out now, and then put these two together. See if I can smooth out some of these, and that's from turning the seams under. I didn't do a flat filled seam. I did do the backstitch part, but then I just turned under because the seam allowances were very short. Just turned under and sort of tried to tack those raw edges down. So you see a bit of a ridge there, but once it's together, once the sleeve is together, the illusion might be a little stronger. Well, I put this sleeve in last night, went very smoothly with the modified sleeve pattern. Went into the arm's eye very nicely. Seems to fit okay, so we'll get the other one in. Okay, so the other one ended up with the outside seam hitting at the shoulder seam of the bodice, so we'll do this one the same way then. And that traveled very nicely down the arm's eye to the inside seam on both the bodice and the sleeve. So we're going to put the sleeve in. You want generally right sides together, but I'm going to start with a just a running stitch to get it in there. I don't have to gather this sleeve because it's quite fitted to the bodice, so it won't need gathering really, but I still use the running stitch to fit it into the arm's eye. And I did that with my historical Halloween costume. That went quite well too. But you can prepare the sleeve beforehand with gathering threads to size it down to the arm's eye, and then evenly spread your gathers if you have them, but this won't have much. It's more of a chore style dress, not using excess material, so less frills. Now I still do want to do the two sides together, so what I usually end up doing, let me see if I remember now. Start here, line up the seams. Okay. So these are outside, and what I do is, because you want these two, instead of one overlapping the other, you want them to be, if they're sewn down, you want it to be more like that. So what I do is, let me see, left side here, this way. Then we have the two right sides facing each other. Stitch them together so that you end up being able, once I have the gathering thread in and the sleeve is well fitted to the bodice, then you can pull the gathering thread. Last night I left it in because I stitched the backstitch fairly firmly and fairly close to it, so I decided to leave it in. And in the past I have removed the gathering thread, but it doesn't hurt to leave it in. You have a little extra there, reinforcement. So I may leave it in. We'll see how this one goes. I do a fairly fine seam, so I want to leave enough space to finish the seams. Make sure they're well lined up. Those are matching. I'm trying to pattern match at the same time. And they are fairly matched already. So that's nice. So we're a little ways away, so I have to do a little gathering, or a little stretching here. There. You could also just pin at these points where the seams match, where you want them to match, and go from there, in between them. So there's going to be a little gather. I had a little gather last night as well. Just spread it. Just leave that end loose because I'm going to pull that thread. She does have a slight amount of gathering in her dress there, so that will be alright. Pretty good fit, and will be fine-tuned as I sew it down with the back stitch more precisely, and those two are together to start. Good match there for the pattern. I'm just going to do some small back stitching all the way around. Dell is a stubborn girl. Line up the inside seam of the sleeve with the inside seam of the bodice, and that's what's happened. And you want the two right sides together, so you want your outside of your sleeve and your right side of your sleeve, and the right side of the bodice, and you want them together. So you have your sleeve and you put it in the hole, and then you've got the two lined up. The inside seam of the sleeve on the inside seam of the bodice, and then in this case for this sleeve I have the shoulder seam of the bodice is lined up with the outside seam of the sleeve. Now my other dresses, I believe the outside seam of the sleeve lined up with one of the other back seams, maybe just the one underneath the shoulder seam. Dell. I'm not sure. That's the way that one worked out, but this one has fit quite nicely, and it's ended up at the shoulder seam of the bodice. And I tried it on last night after I had put the right sleeve in, and so also while I'm doing this, making sure you get those seams lined up. Also doing pattern matching at the same time, and that's coming out pretty good here. And so you just want to keep on. Now I've got started already with the back stitch. This will just be a flat felled seam, and so I'm continuing with the back stitch, fairly clear sailing here down to the inside seam. Something I like about hand sewing, if you're going one stitch at a time, you have time to see things developing on the horizon and make adjustments as you go. As you're going one stitch at a time, you have plenty of time to catch anything and adjust accordingly. So for this, you want to keep your two pieces well aligned, and they are, because they're already sort of basted with the running stitch. They're attached, and as you go though, you want to keep rotating the two pieces and keep that they're smoothly aligned, rotating them together, and keep the edges smooth. So you might want to bunch a little, so you want to make sure that's smooth, and just keep on putting your. This is the back stitch portion, so and this is just a cotton embroidery skein of thread, and I don't separate it. I use the whole thickness of the pieces, and I found it's quite strong that way and nice to work with. It can be a little bit tricky threading needles depending on what you're using, but generally I manage, and I find it quite nice, smooth to work with. It's strong, it's natural fiber. So here again, rotating both pieces together at the same time, keeping the surface smooth. Place your back stitch. So I'll have the sleeves in today, and that's really the major portion done. The bodice will be together. Now I have to open the buttons. They arrived in the mail a few days ago, but I haven't opened them yet. So next I will be actually sewing the two parts together, the skirt and the bodice, and then I will be putting the buttons on. So there's not that much left. I have also to do a collar and fold over the cuffs and maybe gather them a little and sew them down. Lots of room in the sleeves. They're plenty long. So there we are, the inside seam. And that's the inside seam of the sleeve, the inside seam of the bodice, well lined up. And that's the backstitch portion. So now I'll just be felling down the seam. I'll be trimming down the inside edge with the sleeve edge and then folding over and felling it down. I have the sleeve backstitched in. That's the inside seam of the bodice along the side, the inside seam of the sleeve, and a cat in the sleeve. This is the outside seam of the sleeve, and that's lined up in this case with the shoulder seam of the bodice. And who is that? Look who's wearing my dress! Hi there, Indelible. Do you like it? Come here. Let's try it on you. Oh, I guess these might be a little long on you. Come here. Come here. Here. Here we go. Look at that. Oh, look, that looks good. You like it? Yeah, look at that. The neck is a perfect size. Perfect. Back of the neck. Look at that. The shoulder seams are right perfect. Interesting how they made these. Okay, she says, well, it must be mine then. Hey, Del? No, I gotta get back to work on it. Now, this is the finished sleeve at the inside, which I finished last night. If you really are struggling with sleeves and you want a very good resource to help you with them, I highly recommend the Foundations Revealed Sleeve Workshop. And that's where I've learned, and it was offered free, and I don't know if it's still available for free. They do have some free resources on their site, so you can sign up as a free member, and there will be some things available to you. The sleeve workshop may not be there right now, but it was offered a couple of times, and I studied it last year, and it's very helpful, so I highly recommend Foundations Revealed for help with that. Trimming the edge of the sleeve down enough to just fold this over and fell it down. I could use my bigger scissors. I might do that because I don't want to tax these too much. And you have to be careful, of course, not to trim the other edge. And you don't have to, but I want to see if I can pull that running thread that I started with, just because some of it got bunched up. In sleeves, for some reason, I have pulled the running and gathering threads, and in petticoats, frills, and things like that, I tend to leave them in because I want to need as much reinforcement of the gathers rather than remove, and I mean, why waste the thread as well, you know? To pull it, I couldn't really reuse it, so I just leave it in, and I figure that'll help to reinforce the gathers as well, even though I sew them down, but I just don't see much reason to take that thread out in that case. In this case too, you could leave it in. It's just the way I started doing it when I started, which isn't that long ago. And so I may resort to leaving it in. I left it in the other sleeve, but this one I'm going to pull just because it's a little bit bunched, like I said. Oh, I'm just going to fill that seam now. I ate, but that's okay. Show them what you got. What is it? Oh, French toast?
Nope.
What is it? It's bread.
Yes.
Eggs?
Cut it out. Throw an egg in and omelet ingredients. And then you put that cut out piece on top. And you let it cook and you flip it over. I forgot the cheese inside, so I just added it at the end.
Oh, it's cheese, okay.
So
Alright, just lay it down there.
Eggs and
Might be safe.
toast.
Cool, thanks a lot. Tracy was cooking again, Del. Hey? What are you doing? You want to go? How can you want to go under there? It's so hot today. Oh my gosh. Trying to get some shade, are you? I know it's just cotton, but... Pony, stay off my supper. Hey, hey. Haka. Never mind. Looks good.